So it's been over a year now since Ash Ketchum has left the Pokemon anime, and I thought it'd be fitting to go back and take one final look at the overall story and character progression that he went through over the course of 25 years. If you just take a quick glance at each generation and see how each one impacted the story and character development, it's pretty easy to spot out the outlier, which is the shitstorm that we call Best Wishes Generation 5. Alright, so I know most of you guys probably saw that one coming, but I just want to clarify, no, I'm not a hater of the Gen 5 anime. It's actually the first one I grew up watching, so I do have nostalgia and fondness for it. But that's not going to stop me from absolutely shitting on it today as we go through how Unova screwed over the years of character development and storylines that had been built through the last 4 generations before it. So before we go into how Generation 5 screwed Pokemon, we need to talk about what had been established before it and why it was such a well planned out and well constructed story. So let's go through the quick rundown of Ash's journey from Pallet Town to the Lily of the Valley Conference. So starting in Gen 1 in the first episode, we meet our protagonist, Ash Ketchum, a 10-year-old boy who's going to get his very first Pokemon. After waking up late and missing out on one of the normal starters, he's given a Pikachu instead to start his journey. So right off the bat here, we can see that Ash isn't exactly the most disciplined or well-prepared character. He's clumsy and out of place, but he makes up for it with just sheer enthusiasm. Pikachu is the first to notice Ash's incompetence as he watches Ash try to catch a Pokemon without its help. It leads to him hitting a Spearow in the head with a rock. This mistake eventually leads to the two of them being chased down by a flock later in the episode, and the whole scene just seems so bizarre and stupid that it only makes sense that someone like Ash could find himself in it. We as an audience start to question this kid's abilities and goals, and start to wonder whether it's worth our time rooting for someone that seems doomed to fail. This is where we see a part of Ash's character that we've yet to become introduced to, and it's what salvages our interest. Right when it seems that the two are going to be ripped to shreds, Ash jumps in front of Pikachu and tries his best to protect it. We see firsthand Ash's loyalty and the ability to put others over himself when it matters most. He decisively makes a decision to save his weakened Pokemon and put himself in harm's way when he could have easily done the opposite to get himself out of the situation. We learn here that there's just so much more to Ash than what meets the eye. And while yes, he's a bit of an idiot, we know that he's a good person at heart who's willing to put Pokemon, something that many people consider tools, before himself. That's something that immediately defines his character and will continue to do so throughout his journey, all the way to the very end. Throughout the Kanto arc, Ash has several other encounters and showings that reflect the character that we were shown at the beginning of the journey. The episode where him and his Pokemon are stuck in an ice cave and he does whatever he can to make sure that they are warm, even if it means that he's the one who has to suffer, is a huge example of this. The anime does a great job of making Ash a likable character and an inspiration to younger kids who want to become a good person, even if you aren't exactly the best at what you do. Ash has constant shortcomings as a battler, losing battle after battle and needing the help of Brock and Misty to guide him through his Kanto arc. This is where we see another important character trait of Ash, his ability to accept help from people and understand his own abilities as a trainer. While he's enthusiastic and has a seemingly unattainable goal in mind, he hasn't let it get to his head. Even though he's gotten a few badges, he's still humble and understands that Brock and Misty know more than him, and that he needs to learn from the both of them to know as much as he can about the Pokemon world. On just a side note here, I want to highlight how important Brock and Misty are to the story. While they are pretty much side characters and not really main characters, as they don't have any real goals that they work towards during their journey with Ash, they help him a lot with the basics that he has no real understanding of. If there's one major reason why Ash eventually does become a Pokemon Master, it's because he had people like Brock and Misty helping him at the start of his journey. Now back to Ash. We also learn that he has a deep bond with his Pokemon, and that he sees them as partners and friends instead of tools like many others. We can see that with how he deals with Bulbasaur and Charizard, as he understands Bulbasaur's wishes not to evolve and defends his decision. And with Charizard, Ash takes his time to get Charizard to finally accept him and doesn't take it to heart that he loses the Indigo League because of him. He builds a bond with each and every one of his Pokemon, and it helps not only Ash get better as a trainer, but also makes his Pokemon better as they fall completely into Ash's methods and ways of doing things, and respond to him with just as much enthusiasm as he puts out.
Look, Charizard, I may not be the greatest trainer in the world. Sometimes I don't do the smartest things, and I make lots of mistakes, but I always try to do my best, and I know I'm getting better. I think. We've been together since you were a Charmander, and then when you evolved into Charmeleon. And all I want to do is be good enough for you, so we can battle side by side, as a team.
We can see this all paying off in the Orange Islands arc, where Ash finally wins his first tournament, and beats Drake for the winner's trophy. Even though his Pokemon seem to be inferior on paper, they come out on top through sheer will and drive, which is Ash's primary battling style. However, during the Johto arc, we don't really get to see too much more character development from Ash other than general maturation. He's not a newbie trainer anymore and understands Pokemon and battling much better thanks to the help of Brock and Misty, but he starts to stagnate a bit as there isn't anything new for him now that he's gone through so much with his old Pokemon, and the writers could tell. This leads to possibly the best decision ever made by the writers of the anime, and that's hitting the great restart button during Generation 3. I don't think people understand just how impactful this is to the anime, and I honestly think talking about Ash resetting each region and why it's so important could be a whole video on its own, but I'll keep it short for now. Having Ash reset in a new region was a huge risk, as we'd already developed so many bonds with the cast and Pokemon of the previous two regions as viewers. However, forcing Ash to tackle a new region with just Pikachu and letting the Pokemon that he caught in that region, Hoenn in this instance, actually get the spotlight for once was huge. The issue in Johto was that the old cast of Pokemon took up way too much screen time, and by the time they had been sent off to whatever random hellhole they had to go to, too many episodes had been wasted that could have been focused on the new faces. This is a large part of why the Johto Pokemon are arguably the most underdeveloped of all the generations, and other than maybe Unova of course, and it's a huge reason why Ash's character couldn't really develop any further. However, by resetting in Hoenn, Pokemon like Swellow and Trico got so much more time to shine, and they really showed Ash's relationships with his Pokemon grow, as well as showcasing his ability to train Pokemon as a now more experienced trainer. I loved how they had episodes dealing with Trico learning Bullet Seed or Swellow learning Aerial Ace, as it really drove home the point of Ash now becoming a trainer who could hold his own against anyone. Also, switching out Misty for May was another huge hit by the writers. Having a new inexperienced trainer fill the gap left by a now more mature Ash let new viewers relate to the characters better. It also let Ash become a mentor for the first time, allowing him to teach May what he knew along with the help of Brock. It made Ash's journey much more compelling, as he showed so much character growth by going from a stupid beginner trainer to a more mature teacher. Honestly, I could go in depth and talk about Pokemon Advanced, how it's probably the most important season in the anime, but I'll move on for the sake of the video. During the rest of the Hoenn arc, we see just how much Ash has grown as a battler, as he does surprisingly well by placing top 8 in the Evergrande Conference with a pretty shitty team. However, the team being so bad is mostly the writers' fault, as they pretty much refused to let any of Ash's Pokemon evolve, and they made a competitive powerhouse like Torkoal become a literal crybaby. Anyways, we continue to see Ash's battling prowess grow through the Battle Frontier arc, where we see a lot of old faces and witness firsthand how powerful Ash's old Pokemon have gotten since we've last seen them. At this point in Ash's journey, he's an amazing trainer and battler, and you'd think this is where he gets his chance to take the lead in his traveling group and be that mentor figure. Yeah, no. In Diamond and Pearl, which is still arguably the best generation by the way, Brock is back once more, and for what reason I don't really know. Donphan's another great character however, similar to May, but has her own goals and interests along with battling styles that make her unique. Ash definitely comes into his own in this series as a trainer and battler, building his most impressive team yet. That's when we meet the most important character of this generation, Paul. Paul does so much for Ash that it's honestly insane. He's pretty much the anti-Ash, doing everything in a pretty much the opposite way. He's cold and calculated compared to Ash's carefree and laid-back approach. This leads to Chimchar's arc, which is easily the best arc we've ever seen from a Pokemon in the anime. There's so many amazing moments showing Ash's growth and development along with constant references to previous moments in old arcs, which really shows continuity to his character. It all comes to a head in the Lily of the Valley conference, where Ash beats Paul in an epic battle, creating a full circle moment for Infernape and leaving us hungry to see what Ash can do and how far he can go this time around. And then Tobias happens. We all know how that ended, so let's just move on to the actual point of today's video. Unova. The reason behind the writers' complete teardown of Ash in this generation was likely due to the fact that he was becoming too strong for the writers to continue writing him as an underdog. He was starting to become a real contender, but they needed to continue his story so that he could be the face of the franchise for years to come. And yeah, of course, it's always about that cash, but anyway, they went back and they saw what they had done in Hoenn and said, alright, wanna watch me do it again? And then they did, but they just made it 10 times worse. Ash's character, gone. His battling skills, gone. The continuity shown in the gens prior, gone. Hell, his last 5 brain cells, gone. The way they just took a fat shit on Ash in Best Wishes is just hard to watch now that I've seen the other generations. It's not just the whole Pikachu losing to Snivy incident that makes this series stupid. Like, I can understand making Pikachu weaker at the start of the journey so it's more compelling for newer viewers. However, forcing Ash to become even more stupid than when he first started off is just fucking insane. He doesn't know how to train his Pokemon, which is partly excused by him catching so many, but it's still nuts. We can see how bad he is at it by looking at exhibit number 1 on Pheasant. This Pokemon is so shit that it's on par with Pidgeotto. And trust me, being compared to Pidgeotto has got to be the worst insult you can ever dish out to a Pokemon. Especially when Ash, who's traveled through 4 regions at this point and has placed top 4 at a regional conference, is the one training it. I can understand they were trying to reset to secure a longer Ash Ketchum era in Pokemon, but specifically stating that he's 10 years old again is just another brain dead move by the writers. Until that point, Ash was implied to age as the story is moving along. It's because of Black and White that this whole Ash has been 10 for 25 years thing even started. It forces Ash to become less mature and act like an idiot because that's what 10-year-olds do. It makes it impossible for Ash to be that Pokemon master and have that mentality when he's out here just fucking scanning Coughing against Roxy, even though he's seen it in its evolution like 150 fucking times. Like, holy shit, there's no way you weren't trying to make him as clueless as possible. It's a creative decision to make Ash scan the Coughing even though he has seen that Pokemon over and over again. It's not even some like random encounter like, oh yeah, he's seen like a Haunter before, but like he scanned it anyway, even though that still sounds stupid. This is a Pokemon he has seen day in and day out for so many years, and then he's just like, oh okay, I need to scan it again. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Alright, so moving on, let's talk about Ash's companions for a moment. Silent's okay, I guess. He doesn't really bring that mentor kind of role to Ash that Brock did, and I understand why they didn't, as this was supposed to be some kind of reset, but Silent almost does nothing for Ash's character and is just there, I guess. Iris is also more of that Misty type beat where she doesn't really have her own compelling journey for us to root for, and is also just there to be another character. She's also constantly giving Ash shit, which could be nice for chemistry if it wasn't for the fact that my boy Ash is a literal pushover in this. Like, there's no way you're gonna see my GOAT from season 1 take this level of disrespect from anyone, especially not from this bitch. She's always calling him a little kid, which is just another way for the writers to keep rubbing in your face that Sinnoh Ash is gone and they've brought back OG Ash while removing a single brain cell. It's honestly just such a hard watch now, even though this is the generation that was the beginning part of my childhood. The glaring mistakes that the writers continue to make in this is just so frustrating. Everything that made Ash such an interesting character before this is just gone. He's not stupid but enthusiastic like OG Ash, or competent and more reserved like Sinnoh Ash. It's somewhere in the middle where he's just brain dead but also has no character, and it makes people like Silent, who put on small Pokemon, feel like the most interesting characters in the show. And we haven't even talked about the worst battle of the generation, which is Ash's battle against Cameron in the Virtus Conference. This man Cameron brings 5 fucking Pokemon to the battle and walks out not only the winner, but he wins through the power of friendship. His Riolu evolves mid-battle and spanks the shit out of Ash's Pokemon so bad that the battle ends midway through the episode. They didn't even care to add more to the battle, so for 10 minutes we can just sit there and contemplate what the hell we had watched and how the hell Ash was even in the top 8 in the first place. I don't get how you can sell that bad against someone who's pretty much a copy-paste version of you from season 1. It's so infuriating watching this battle, specifically just because it's just so stupid and bizarre to the point where I don't even want to get into it.
Lucario, you did it! You really did it! Awesome, Lucario! They don't come any better than you!
Stop it. Get some help.
Eventually, the writers realized that no one likes this bag of shit that they wrote, so they tried their best in the last season to fix what they had done, and they did that by trying to appeal to everyone's sexual desire for Charizard, I guess. I don't know. It was just a half-assed attempt, really, to put Ash back into continuity, as it confirmed that Ash was actually the same one that we had seen in prior seasons, just one that apparently suffered brain damage off screen. They really did nothing with Charizard, even though they teased a battle between it and Reshiram, which would have been dope if they had actually stuck through with it. But at least thankfully this whole generation was a big wake-up call for the writers, as they realized that the audience weren't a bunch of mindless zombies who would eat up whatever they put out. So, this eventually led to the absolute peak television of the mid-2010s, which was Pokemon X and Y. I'm not even lying about the peak television part. Like, I would skip parts of football games to watch X and Y. Like, this man, Ash Ketchum, was absolutely like the GOAT. He was beating out Tom Brady for viewership, which, you know, tells you a lot about how insane this series was, especially watching it as it aired. But anyway, these are just some of my thoughts about this just awful series that we call Black and White. Even though it is awful, some of my fondest memories of watching Pokemon as a whole will be me watching Generation 5. And maybe, yeah, I did lose my shit a little when I saw Charizard come back, and it's probably a big reason why I even rewatched this generation, but whatever. My rating for this would probably, after putting nostalgia aside, I guess, would probably around like a 4 out of 10. But then again, we had Crocodile, so 10 out of 10, best series.
And those jiggling cheeks. You can't find anything this jiggly in Unova.